what can you expect from this evening? It's kind of in your program, but there are three parts. This is a special occasion, and we're aiming to raise awareness about what these United Nations goals are and the sense of cooperation that both enables the UN to function and that is necessitated by the existence of the United Nations. Secondly, we're going to gain some perspectives on global priorities for a better, more sustainable world. And the third thing, as you'll see in the latter part of the program, and you've already applauded them, we're going to be honoring these three corporations for their outstanding achievements about UN goals and the inspiration and motivation that I hope you will find from their distinguished work. And I hope you'll also continue to enjoy the evening. That's a fourth goal. So, why is this evening so special? It's already been mentioned, it's the 70th anniversary since the UN was established. We've been told, of course, as you know, that the charter was signed in San Francisco at this historic building, which has just been renovated. And there was a wonderful program organized there yesterday by the San Francisco chapter of UNA. And it was the place where the charter was signed. That's one of the wonderful historic pictures from the archives. So this year, the UN, in its 70th anniversary, has been celebrated on the occasion of the Charter Day on the 26th of June. And one of the most spectacular occasions was the official event that the United Nations offered, one event in the world, because Ban Ki-moon wanted to come to San Francisco, the birthplace. So he was here with Representative Pelosi, Governor Brown, Mayor Lee, and a young lady, Malala, who probably got more awards than more applause than anybody else. And she was at that event. It was a stellar event and a beautiful celebration right in our midst. But in addition to San Francisco, the event was also celebrated here in the East Bay. About 3,000 steps from where you are right now, there was a ceremony on the same day in the building, or out in front of the building, the old University Berkeley printing offices, where the UN Charter had been printed in June 1945. And there were people who reprinted it and celebrated it, people of all ages. And also there was an event in Oakland. Oakland is the first place where the UN flag was flying on a permanent daily basis in the whole Bay Area, well out of San Francisco. And there was a mural dedicated specifically as a tribute to the United Nations. And that was a wonderful local ceremony. You could drive by, and when you look up and see this strange thing in the sky at the corner of Telegraph and Broadway, it's to honor the people and the symbol and the spirits of the United Nations. Next, so why are we celebrating? We are celebrating, but why? Let's go into it just a little deeper. Since 1945, in October, when the United Nations became operational, the Charter was signed in June, and it became operational in October on this date. Well, we are celebrating because it's time to take recognition that with a strong United Nations, the world will become better. Well, what is so special and why should it be supported? I want to name, if you can bear with me, 10 quick reasons. Number one, the United Nations has been legitimate. It was signed by all the countries in the world. They gave it legitimacy. Number two, it is inclusive. All those countries at that time joined the United Nations, and now, after 70 years, 193 countries in the world, representing 7 billion people. That is through the evolution of the post-colonial period, which was accelerated because of the work of the United Nations and the peer pressure of the countries in the world to say every person must have an opportunity to have a government and representing its own people. Number three, the United Nations has been durable. It has lasted for 70 years. How many organizations last in this kind of a form for 70 years? The history of the League of Nations is fairly well known to this elite group. It lasted less than 20 years and it ended in the Second World War. It failed, and our country didn't even join it because of the problems of what the people in our country felt and questions about the efficacy and the potential for the League of Nations. Number four, the United Nations has been adaptive. If it has not been adaptive in 70 years, something's wrong, right? Okay, climate change is now an issue. The International Atomic Energy Agency was set up. because there's nuclear weapons and there's questions of proliferation and the utilization of nuclear arms. Terrorism has had all kinds of resolutions adopted in the last few years because non-state entities need to be confronted by the member states, and they have done that. Women's rights has become an issue. The United Nations has adapted in many ways to continue to be relevant. Number 5. Relevant in terms of many, many things. Again, responding to refugees and displaced persons, a record number right now since the end of the Second World War, to remove the chemicals from Syria. That was a UN operation. To work on the sanctions, support the sanctions, facilitate the sanctions against Iran, which has led to the agreements that involve the United Nations and the large countries to help back off the threats of nuclear weapons. So many ways that the United Nations has been relevant. It has been responsive. It has been responsive how? Just a few examples. Smallpox was eradicated. Polio is on the way out. Just last week, Nigeria declared itself free of polio. Malaria is going down. Ebola was addressed last year, not only by that building in New York or in Geneva, but by the countries themselves who are cooperating in a responsive way to these things. The humanitarian crisis, the United Nations is there. Number 7, I'm going to run out of fingers. No, I won't run out of fingers. I still have 10. Number 7, the United Nations is a unique place that is facilitated. If it isn't there, where do people go to consult? Every country can consult, representing every person. And not just consultations, but to agree on intentions. There is intentionality. There are objectives. There are goals that have been set. It doesn't mean they'll all be done, but this is the place where the greatest number of parties in the world can get together to set their goals and standards, and that will relate to the middle part of our program tonight. Number 8, the United Nations has been effective. And as an example, in the last 15 years, in the context of the goals set in the year 2000, there's been a reduction of absolute poverty in the world by 50%. There's been a reduction of hunger by 50%. Maternal mortality has gone down by 50%. These are examples of an effectiveness of the world working together under the aegis of the United Nations. Number 9, the United Nations has been collaborative. It collaborates. It brings partners together to reach understandings and to try to take as much action as they can to empower the United Nations and its partners to make an impact. And finally, the United Nations is unique. It is a go-to organization. It is irreplaceable. It is indispensable, as many people have said. What other organization in the world could have those 10 characteristics that I just mentioned? So imagine what would happen in the world if there was no United Nations for the last 70 years. So, what about this year? This is a momentous year, and I remember last year we had the Secretary General's representative speaking to our annual meeting of the United Nations Association in Washington, and he said, next year, this year, 2015, is going to be a momentous year. And of course, we all, oh, sure. And he said, yeah, but this is really going to be momentous. And in fact, it has been momentous. Number 1 month ago this weekend, 193 countries unanimously agreed about intentionality and goals for the next 15 years, which is a core of our program tonight. The second thing that is happening in this momentous year is that the climate change agreement has been under negotiations for years. Can the world agree on the next goals to protect our planet? So as Ban Ki-moon has said, this is a moment for our generation and for future